turn on to talk.
Okay, when it's green, it's on. Stuff for Cub Scouts.
Oh, okay.
All right, we're a couple minutes late here, so we're going to start the committee of the whole meeting for Tuesday, December 9th. Please call the roll.
Alderman Stralchuk?
Here.
Alderman Talaco? Alderman Meyer? Alderman Hancher? Alderman Bach?
Here.
Alderman Parrish?
Here.
Alderman Bratt?
Here.
Alderman Gebhardt?
Here.
And Mayor Nurbin.
Here. First up, we have approval of the meeting minutes from November 11th.
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments, corrections? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Minutes are approved. First up, we have one of two discussion items. The first is RevPAR Incorporated Hotel Development Feasibility Analysis Phase 1 Consultation Report out. Director Towson will kick it off, and then we've got our consultants online to add some color as we go.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Our representatives from RevPAR are present tonight. I do just want to kick off the meeting by reminding all of us, as well as the public who may be listening, that this was an analysis that we chose to proactively pursue as a result of market analysis that we did of commercial activity on the Port Washington Road corridor. The findings of that was that the commercial corridor is healthy, and we have to continue to look for ways to maintain its health. One of the several recommendations from that analysis suggested that there could be an opportunity for an upper scale, smaller sized hotel. And was there the potential to use that type of development as a catalyst and transformative redevelopment of several sites that were identified in the market analysis? Beyond that, though, we asked the consultant to look at the entire corridor to consider the redevelopment of any site and the feasibility of the development. And that contract was executed by the Common Council. It included multiple components. We crafted that contract to allow for the council to review the results of each phase so that we could be efficient and cost effective with that contract. So tonight, Chris Selke and Chris Lloyd from RevPAR International are here to present the results of phase 1. So they're gonna speak to the presentation here tonight that was also included in your packet. I'll kind of man the PowerPoint, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers and any further dialogue. We did consult with RevPAR as well about one remaining component of the scope that may be of interest, which is to consider a hotel room tax. And they've drafted a draft, proposal on what that policy analysis could include. So that's something that if the council wants to discuss further with RevPAR tonight, we could continue that dialogue and advance that portion of the scope of services. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris. And Chris, thank you both for being here tonight. And we are anxious to hear the results of this phase 1 analysis.
Great. Thank you, Kim. Can everyone hear me? Perfect. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you very much for taking the time to meet with us this evening. And with that in mind, Chris and I are going to walk through, it's a relatively short slide deck that summarizes our initial analysis. It's about 15 slides, but if we could just flick to the next slide, Kim, so you get to the agenda, that'd be great. We're initially going to walk through the site analysis that we conducted, we were provided a total of 12 sites within the corridor to evaluate. And we shortlisted a series of sites and then further shortlisted them down to a kind of a top 2, but initially started with the top 5. Then we're going to review competitive supply that includes both within Mequon itself, but also the region, more specifically the area of North Milwaukee. Finally, we're going to talk a little bit about market performance of those hotels that we looked at that were deemed competitive. And we looked at it both locally, regionally, also looking at the city of Milwaukee as well, and then also did a national comparison as well. And then finally, we're just going to talk through with our initial concerns for the project and proceeding and what the next steps would be. And just as Kim had noted earlier, what we had done is our initial phase 1 of the project, we kind of stopped once we got to this initial component here and wanted to present our findings to you before we proceeded down with the next phases, because at this point, we are a little concerned with the market conditions in terms of the project being market supportable or financially supportable as well. So with that in mind, we'll start off with the site analysis, which is on the next slide. Thanks. So you can see here, these are the 5 sites that we looked along the Port Washington Road corridor. And we focused really on the sites that were the large enough sites. And Kim, please confirm here, but we had about 12 sites in total. And one of the initial phases that we did was we kind of culled down the sites that were really too small to consider and focused on these 5 here in our analysis. Can we go to the next slide? From here, we actually created a site matrix where we ranked all of the individual a series of metrics for each of the 5 sites that we initially shortlisted to kind of create a best and final list here. And those included the following different metrics: ease of overall development, basically parcel size, sufficient utilities, just the general conduciveness to actual hotel development. Next was proximity to area food and beverage outlets. While hotel guests may have a food and beverage outlet within the hotel, they also prefer to have the opportunity to be within close proximity to alternative food and beverage outlets. The other proximity was to retail amenities, ability to go out and go shopping, pull up necessary essentials or purchase necessary essentials, those types of items. And then we also looked at, and really very importantly, looked at corporate demand. So where would people that were staying in the hotel be coming to visit? Are there large corporations? Are there manufacturing facilities nearby? Things of that nature. And then the next one is leisure demand generators. So this can be everything from visiting friends and family to, if you look at other parts of the state, like in the Wisconsin Dells, where they've got large scale water parks that are large leisure demand generators. Or in this case, we've also got the university, the nearby university, and then also another common leisure demand generator in a market like this, suburban market like this, is also youth sports as well. Surrounding ambiance as well is another one. Current utilization of the site, visibility. Visibility is one of those things that used to be really paramount back in the day. You want it to be as close to the side of the highway as possible, but the advent of GPS and internet advertising has really moved that metric down on our ranking. Then we also looked at the zoning, what was currently allowed and what wasn't allowed. And then finally, the access to I-43 as well. So with those in mind, we ranked all of those items, and you can see here on this site matrix, we put the most important ones, we assigned them a 3, and then the least important ones we assigned a 1. And then from here, we ranked each individual site within the total of 5, with the highest score being the highest ranking site. And as you can see here, site 4 and 5 were very, very close. They both scored high, above 90 out of a total potential of 100. So they did quite well. Sites 1, 2, and 3 were definitely inferior to site 4 and 5. Again, with the largest drivers for those being their proximity to food and beverage outlets and retail amenities, given they're a little bit closer to the interchange where a lot of those larger strip retail centers were. With that in mind, we can go to the next slide, Kim. The next thing we did was we reviewed the overall submarket, Milwaukee North submarket, North Shore submarket. So we looked at hotels, really everything north of Milwaukee. and looked in three specific little submarkets, which were Glendale, Brown Deer, and Grafton. We also looked in Mequon as well. But as we pointed out in our memo, the three existing hotels in Mequon are of mid-scale or lower rating or economy rating, whereas the goal for this project was really to focus on upper upscale, which is, in layman's term, is more of a 4-star rating. And the hotels that are currently in Mequon are really the 2.5 to 3-star rating. And so we tried to identify the hotels that were closest to that 4-star rating. As you can see from the list here, not many of those are meeting that 4-star criteria either, but these are the most proximate hotels that are in that upscale category, or in some cases, mid-scale, upper mid-scale category. These are, again, defined terms within the hospitality industry, but again, looking at a simpler star rating, I would say most of these hotels are in that 3-star, the 3-star rating. So we've got a total of about 1,000 hotel rooms here, 1,000 in total, spread across these three various submarkets. As you can see, also various opening dates, with a handful of them opening more recently, but the vast majority of them do have some tenure in the market, with the newest hotels being in Glendale, and then also the Town Place Suites up in Grafton as well. Can we click to the next slide? So this next slide shows the performance of each individual submarket. So what we did was we collected occupancy, average daily rate, which is also known as ADR, and RevPAR, which our firm is named for, is an industry term, which is revenue per available room, which is basically how much revenue are you getting per night for each individual room, regardless of whether it's occupied or not. The average daily rate is really what you're paying, obviously paying for your room rate, and then occupancy is the simple occupancy of the hotel. And as you can see here, from 2022 to 2024, the market occupancy for the Glendale hotels has declined by about 4 points, going from 59 to 55%. At the same time, the ADR has actually increased. The ADR has gone up from $123 to $131. But that important metric of RevPAR, which is how much money are you getting per available room, has actually stayed flat. So while the rate has gone up, the occupancy has gone down. So effectively, the hotels are getting the same amount of revenue that they were in 2022 and 2024. And then if you look into 2025, this is a projected year-end number that we're working with. So we've taken the year-to-date performance through October and then estimated the last 2 months of the year. And you can see we expect it to decline even further, with occupancy eroding an additional 3 points from year-end last year, and rate, most importantly, rate declining pretty significantly by almost $12. So in the end, RevPAR has declined to about $62 as well. So that's also not necessarily a positive factor here, as we're seeing market performance decline. Can we click to the next slide, Kim? So Brown Deer, a little bit more of a mixed performance in this one, but again, you can see a similar trend here. Occupancy levels are below 50%, so definitely on the low side, and room rates are even lower. This is likely a result of the hotels being a little bit older. The most recent hotel opening in Brown Deer would be the Candlewood in 2008, but the balance of that supply had opened up some as early as 1990, but other hotels are also in the early 2000s. So their performance is an indicative of a little bit of age, but also just the market conditions as well. And you can see that room rates are down, pretty significantly year to date again, and occupancy is actually bumped up a little bit in 25. But again, we're looking at a RevPAR of roughly $43, which is almost $20 below the Glendale hotels. So if we can go to the next slide. The last one is the Grafton market, which is probably representative of the newest hotels in the market. And so their performance is actually the strongest of all of those three submarkets that we've seen. And they sit at the very north end of the Port Washington corridor. And what we've got here, as you can see, occupancy was quite strong, actually, back in 2022 and 2023 at 68%. But into 2024, occupancy declined precipitously by about 7 points and has stayed down again in 2025. The concern here for us is we saw some positive rate growth as well in this market, which was great. But again, into 25, ADR has declined again. And so now we're seeing RevPAR at $78, which again is down below 2022 levels. When we were to, can we just click to the next slide real quick, Kim? So this is the total market. So this is all three of those sets combined. So this is really a macro look at all 1,000 or 1,082 rooms in the market, or the defined market. And you can see that ADR has declined from $118 to $116 over the course of the last 4 years, and occupancy has declined from 56% to a projected 50%, and RevPAR has declined by roughly $9, going from $67 to $58. Again, so a long-term trend of seeing some declines, and comparatively, just from a national perspective, and then also from an overall or downtown Milwaukee perspective, most of the markets have still been recovering. Obviously, we had the extreme declines of COVID in 2020 from 2019 levels, but you can see they've gradually made some increases, but now we're starting to see some declines again. And this is different from what we're seeing in the rest of the national markets, which are either flatlining or still seeing some level of growth. So can we click to the next slide? So here's probably the most critical item that we're seeing here. And putting this as a backdrop, is we've really just been talking about top line revenue. There are a number of issues, as I think everyone knows, with inflation and the overall cost of doing business, whether it's labor, guest supplies in the hotel, simple things as linen, and then just overall operating costs for hotels have been increasing at a very rapid rate, far above what we would consider a typical inflationary rate of roughly 3%. And as you can see, for the last 4 years, if we look at the total competitive market, its revenue per available room is actually declining by 4.5% per year. So when you account for those two factors of where you've got inflationary, your costs are going up and your revenues are going down, these are not necessarily healthy hotel markets, in our opinion. Can we click to the next slide real quick? So lastly, we just looked at, for a comparison perspective, what we did was we looked at the overall competitive market, downtown Milwaukee, and then the total United States. And as you can see, back in 2022, the competitive market was actually performing better than downtown Milwaukee. Slightly, it's modest, but we're performing better. Then into 23, downtown Milwaukee's surpassed them. And then into 2024, they went significantly past them and are now back in line with what the national averages are for occupancy. But you can see that market occupancy is down, again, below 50%, whereas downtown Milwaukee is at 62%. So can we click to the next slide, which just highlights the ADR differential. So this is the overall ADR differential, again, between all three markets that we looked at here, the competitive market, downtown Milwaukee, and the US national average. And you can see that obviously the competitive market trails the downtown Milwaukee market, which is to be expected. Most suburban markets do trail their central business districts, but we're also trailing behind the US as well, just to give you a little bit of an idea of where the differential is here. But we're trailing the US market down by about $30. And the last slide is on the differentials here is on a RevPAR basis. So you can see we're about 60% of the national average in terms of performance. And this goes across all hotel classes. But we're only at $63, whereas the nation's at $100, and downtown Milwaukee is at $105. So if we come to this next slide here, these are our primary concerns with the Port Washington corridor. Overall market demand has not recovered to pre-COVID levels. Across the United States, they certainly have. Across downtown Milwaukee, they have, and then some of the other submarkets in Milwaukee as well. They have also recovered to pre-COVID levels, but market demand continues to erode in the North Shore market, particularly into 2025. The next one is the next concern that we have is that there's a limited number of market demand drivers along the Port Washington Road corridor. And so where we're focused on here is large corporations, industrial, office space, in industrial space or manufacturing space that may have needs for hotel room nights. It really is a residential community, and the residential demand is what we see in this market. There may be some other limited components of demand that are related to construction that could be sourced into this market as well. But from our perspective, we had concerns that we would have to be pulling demand from other markets and make ourselves an attractive destination in order to get demand there. The last critical component that we have some concerns with here is really related to the room rates themselves. And as you can see, the room rates have been declining, but the room rates below $120 are not necessarily indicative. And then couple that with a lower occupancy of 50% are not necessarily indicative of what it would take to drive a return for a new development project on this, certainly of a four-star nature. So a four-star hotel in the United States, you're probably looking somewhere north of $200,000 per room to develop. As a kind of an example, this market is only likely going to support something that's much lower cost to develop. So we would certainly probably be more in line with the competitive hotels that we identified here. That would be in that 2.5 to 3-star category from a support perspective. And even then, it would be questionable if we would be able to drive a financial return given the current market numbers. And so at that point in time, once we got to this point, we reached out to Kim and her team and had a brief meeting to kind of outline our concerns with the market before we took the next step, which would have been identifying a product type and generating an actual pro forma for a proposed hotel. Because at this point, there's enough signs for us to indicate that it would not likely be financially feasible at this point. So with that in mind, I think the one last thing where we did see some opportunity, I want to come back to and just discuss where we did see some opportunity or potential opportunity is likely in an extended stay capacity, which would be, if we click back to, Kim, I'm going to ask you to click all the way back to like the third or fourth slide, which had that competitive supply. Oh, it's the fifth slide, actually. I'm sorry. Perfect. These hotels have an interesting development profile. They're called extended stay hotels, but they're basically standard hotel rooms that offer larger accommodations. They also offer small kitchens, and these accommodations can be used for people that are, let's say, traveling with families, and so they have a larger party. They can also be for people that are looking to relocate to a destination, and they need a hotel for an extended period of time. Let's say it's 2 weeks, 3 months, while they're finding permanent accommodations. Another use for extended stay hotels in a lot of cases in suburban markets is also insurance business. So let's say, God forbid, there's a fire at a house or a flood or something, and the house is not usable. And insurance companies will put up people at these extended stay hotels for long periods of time while their houses are remediated and repaired. So there's a couple examples of these hotels within the market. So the Residence Inn in Glendale is one example. The Candlewood Suites in Brown Deer is another example. And then the Town Place Suites up in Grafton is another example. Those are the three extended stay hotels. The unique thing about extended stay hotels is they have the tendency to pull from a greater radius. People, because they're staying for longer periods of time, they're less concerned with am I next door to the office building that I have to go to my meeting in the next day? Or am I next door to the youth park where the sporting fields are going to be for the next day? These are people that are, effectively living in the community for an extended period of time. So from that perspective, the Port Washington Road corridor would be a little bit more conducive for the development of a hotel like this, because it doesn't necessarily need to be directly adjacent to commercial demand generators and leisure demand generators. So that's something that we talked a little bit about with Kim. But again, the focus of our study was really focused on that 4-star level of hotels. And from where we were sitting, we did not see market support for the development of a 4-star hotel. We also talked a little bit about, with Kim and her team, just some of the overall design and prototypical design of some of these hotels. And I understanding that you all have a 2-story height limit currently on the Port Washington Road corridor. Almost all of these hotels will require at least 3 to 4 stories in order to make them efficient from a development perspective as well. So that's another item that we talked about, which would be a little bit of a hindrance if we were to go with, again, a prototypical extended stay hotel as an alternative to what was initially requested of us. So with that in mind, I know I've been talking here for about 20 minutes, but I wanted to provide you with a little bit of background and then answer any questions that you may have.
All right, let's open it up for questions from the committee. Alderman Strelchak.
So I guess my first question is, we're looking for a, like a 4-star hotel, right? And on the list that we've got in front of us currently, I think there's maybe one that could be considered close to a 4-star. What I'm trying to understand is, these markets in nearby communities are, I think, a little different than the Mequon demographic. I think they're a little different than the Mequon safety standpoint. I think Mequon has more food and amenities, which would be close, walkable, short drivable to some of the hotels in the consideration list. So what I'm trying to understand is, like, let's say a Hilton Garden Inn, I'm not trying to, handpick brands and things like that. I'm thinking of my, my business travel, Hilton Garden Inn or a Courtyard by Marriott are typically the two that I look for when I travel. We've only got one kind of in that upper tier of hotels that people would seek out. So I guess my question is, if we built a 4-star, would we pull potentially a lot more from neighboring communities? Why wouldn't we be able to support it? And my third question in line would be, what is the national average bringing to the table that we are missing as a community, just from an understanding standpoint?
Sure. So I think first and foremost, one of the reasons we selected the hotels we selected is because they're likely to share demand generators, right?
Yeah.
So these communities, I mean, we'll give you Grafton, for example. Grafton is pulling demand all the way up from down from Sheboygan. We uncovered that during the course of our interviews that the Grafton hotels, one of the reasons why they saw their occupancy decline was because there was new supply open up in Sheboygan by one of the existing hotel owners up there, and they shifted some demand from a corporate demand driver that was filling one of their Grafton hotels, and they moved to Sheboygan, right? So there's a willingness to drive, but there's also that, and I think I mentioned that earlier, is that proximity to demand generators. And within Mequon itself, there isn't a significant corporate demand driver, someone that's driving hundreds, if not thousands, of room nights into area hotels. And a lot of that industrial development or commercial development is west of you in other communities along the North Shore, or it's to the south of you in downtown Milwaukee. So I don't disagree with you in terms of the affluence of the community and the ability to, but unfortunately the community isn't the one that, the community is not necessarily always the one that's using the hotel. Visiting friends and family and that type of demand is a relevant demand factor, but it's not one that's going to necessarily support, a Hilton Garden Inn or a Courtyard. I think I'm assuming that's what you were referencing there, and in terms of a Courtyard.
Sure.
When we looked at overall performance, if we go to the Glendale hotels, they've obviously got access down to that larger mixed-use development to the south of them as well, which has quite a number of amenities. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but they've got a lot of access to amenities. While they're not necessarily directly walking distance, they are very proximate to them as well. But you can see that the performance there isn't necessarily driving, that we're not knocking their socks off here at $120. I mean, from our perspective, in order for one of these hotels to really truly be successful and be supportable with today's development costs, you really need to be the hotel needs to be penciling north of 65% occupancy, if not a little bit higher, in a stabilized year, and in having room rates north of $120. And you can see from all three of these markets, no one's able to actually to do that at this point. And so that was the other factor that we were looking at as well, is, that there's existing demand generators in this market, but we clearly have an oversupply situation if we've got occupancies for the whole market only not exceeding 50% for the combined market. I mean, Grafton does a little bit better, but you can see Grafton got significantly impacted as soon as they lost some of their demand generators to the north as well. And I'm sorry, you had a final question, and I can't remember what the third one was.
Yeah, just the driver and other communities and what the driver is for demand and occupancy. You've covered that pretty well in your description.
Yeah, I mean, when we looked in Mequon, and again, we spent some time in the city as well. We also noticed that a lot of the industrial base, or some of the larger, not necessarily industrial, but it could be, flex space, was west of the corridor, located in the center part of the city or the municipality. And while there's some demand that comes out of there, that demand is leaking into, it's leaking up to Grafton, or it's leaking down to Brown Deer as well. But then when we actually interviewed also some of the hotels to the west of these submarkets as well, and we're trying to determine if there was any other demand from Mequon that was leaking out of one of these three submarkets, and we could not identify any specific demand generators that were leaking into those other submarkets to the west either.
Yeah, when people come to stay in the community, they typically go north to Grafton.
Yeah.
That's the primary area in which they're used. I did a quick spot check, and, the Marriott's going for $129 a night, just south of us. So, I mean, your rates you're pretty much right on base. Again, just a statement to the general public, because I know people are listening to this. We don't have to be everything to everybody. We certainly don't have to build a big hotel if the demand's not here. And, we need to be respectful of our community and what that involves. I've heard through my time in office that people have wanted to, not have to leave the community to have family when they come to visit. Again, this feasibility is a really good study to, try to understand what it looks like to, try to please the residents without, going too big and making it look like something that maybe we just wouldn't have as a fit for our community. So thanks for your commentary on that.
Yep.
Any other comments? Just following up what Alderman Strelchak said, I've heard similar things from people, but that's why you hire professionals to dig into the details. And just don't do it because a lot of people bent your ear about it for 5 minutes at the grocery store. Alderman Meyer.
I'm not saying we would do this, but do other communities have, subsidize some or have incentives for the hotels or that to move into their community?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways to do this, right? If we were to proceed and identify the amount of a subsidy that would be needed. So we've seen everything from development subsidies, and that development subsidy can come in the form of a land purchase, right? Where the land is donated or provided to the developer if it's municipally owned. Other components where we've seen partial ownership, or we've seen a rebate of an occupancy tax is another common way to do it, where effectively the occupancy tax for the municipality is used to support additional development. In some cases, you do see outright ownership of hotels by municipalities and cities. It's probably most common in the form of large convention hotels in major metropolitan areas, where you would see the municipality invest and build a convention center hotel in order to drive economic impact. But there's also plenty of examples where those investments haven't necessarily been very successful either. But there are opportunities, to incentivize people from a fairly minimal level all the way up to whole ownership. It would really depend on what your appetite would be to do something like that.
I think staff needs a couple of overarching decisions from us. One is whether we're interested in proceeding at all on any further on the hotel side. And I'm guessing the answer is probably not, because we've got a consultant that said it's probably not favorable. But we do have another component of this related to the contemplation of a hotel room tax. We do have existing hotels and we don't have any room tax. So maybe we should talk a little bit about that, unless anyone wants to keep revisiting the hotel. Or has any other comments on the hotel before we move on? Alderman Parrish.
Well, I was just going to thank staff and the consultant, Alderman Gephardt, Economic Development Committee. I really like this approach where we had the a la carte and we can kind of veer off here and not spend thousands more dollars. So thank you for that. I was kind of originally leaning towards a room tax, although after hearing about the data, I would be concerned about any financial, it could affect demand further for the hotels we do have. So, just we only have 3 places to stay now. So if they're all going to start charging room taxes because we're making them do it, then that could affect the demand further. I'd rather come up with ways to encourage our existing hotels to reinvest in themselves and raise themselves up a bar and make it a place where our residents would be proud to have their families. So I don't know what that involves, but I think that's probably where I would prefer to go with it. But I wouldn't call it a high priority, and I'm fine moving on from the subject after tonight. So thank you.
Alderman Gephardt. Well, I saw you first. We'll get to everyone.
Great.
We've got time.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of comments. First of all, a shout out to the Economic Development Board. They work really hard trying to think of, exploring different opportunities for thoughtful development in our neighborhoods or in our community. This is an area that's located in one of the TIDs in a high visible area that we really are trying to generate some thoughtful and meaningful development that's going to spur, again, some more action along that corridor. And we think there's an opportunity there. And matter of fact, we were a little bit surprised with the data, but that's why you go through this process, is you never know where it's going to lead you to. And it led us to a point where now we've got really good data that we can go ahead and work with. The other benefit for this as well is, that hasn't been mentioned, is city staff was also looking for ways to work on design standards, right? So that we're able to do a better job communicating to developers and putting certain things in certain areas. And that was an area that's certainly going to be taken up in additional discussions in terms of some areas within the Port Washington corridor where we might be able to go ahead and tweak our design standards. The other piece that I'd like to mention is a shout out to RevPAR. I had the opportunity of being part of the kickoff meeting and every meeting during the process. They hit our timeline. They got right to the heart of the data. They came in, they got to the data very quickly. And at the end of the day, we're able to go ahead and come back to us with really meaningful data, even below what they were estimating from a cost standpoint. They hit that mark and said, hey, we've got to have discussions. This is what we've learned, and we're bringing it back to the council here tonight. So a shout out to them, and I'd very much, if we're looking at doing additional studies, I'd be in support of trying to go ahead and continue to work with them. In terms of the room tax, the discussion that we've been having at the Economic Development Board is that when we look at our surrounding areas, and I have no way of confirming this, but at least the thinking is that many of the surrounding areas to Mequon already have the room tax in place. So how are they able to go ahead and, if that is the case, how are they able to charge a room tax and still be able to maintain the occupancies, if you will, or the structure of the hotels in those communities? So, the comment was made that we may be a little bit behind what others are doing. So that was potentially an opportunity for us to look at. And then that could generate some funds for us to, put back into promoting and, people coming to the area as they're doing in some of the other communities. So just throwing out that as, we talk about potentially considering looking at continuing an analysis on the room tax side of things. Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman Talaco.
So my question is, later tonight, we have an ordinance coming before us about the town center, the 3-story commercial row houses, and if I'm not mistaken, was that extend a stay on the 3rd floor that they were doing? Or no?
One of the existing commercial buildings on Weston, already built and operating, has some extended stays as part of it. And there are some units suggested as part of the mixed-use commercial building in this mixed-use project as well.
Okay, and I'm asking that because it sounds like we kind of have proactively then have something in the works for this extend a stay, which sounds like that was what he was saying was in a need. Originally, when we did this hotel feasibility study, I was the only one that voted against it. I thought we were putting the cart before the horse. I still feel that way today. I feel that our focus on the Port Washington corridor, why a lot of us feel like, a hotel or someplace to stay is necessary. I think we need to focus on that family-orientated luxury of building things for families to come and spend money, whether it be restaurants or indoor playgrounds or whatever along that line, in order to create more of a higher demand. And then along, if we already are kind of including these extend stays in the town center, that kind of hits that need. And I can't remember my last point, so thank you.
So perhaps time for a straw poll, just to drive some sort of general direction for staff. At this time, who's ready to kind of give up on the concept of a hotel for the time being? Market conditions could change in 5 or 10 years and we could always revisit it. But at time equals now, who's ready to kind of give up on the hotel for Port Washington Road? Okay. Good, there's some general direction, maybe resounding direction.
Mr. Mayor, if I might. I'm not looking to chase down a hotel, but if a boutique something comes to the table that's of intrigue, I'm definitely don't want to turn my
Someone
nose
could
up to
always,
it.
the private market could always come and bring something forward, but I think it's whether we pursue or, that's exactly the question. Yeah, I don't think we'd say no to the right opportunity.
I just wanted to make sure that straw poll is
Yep.
correctly from my standpoint, so thank you.
Yeah, it's more of a city initiative led, as a policy. And then on the question of the hotel room tax, who's interested in learning more? We haven't had much discussion on it tonight. And it has been brought up the last couple of years when we've had some discussion at budget time about alternative revenue sources. So it's been kind of kicked around in those discussions. We've never advanced it. I think while we're on the topic, there might be some value in furthering the discussion at least. Alderman Strelchak.
Yeah, I'm open to it. Again, piggybacking on what Alderman Parrish shared, we don't want to raise the rate and then hurt our current hotel population right now, their occupancy, and have them go elsewhere. But, we definitely want to look at what it means, from not only a hotel standpoint, but also, short-term rentals, like maybe like an Airbnb or something like that. I would look to understand just kind of what the policy is, maybe kind of what the going rate is, if it's really worth it to go through a financial exercise. Are we talking 10 grand a year? Are we talking, 30, 50, like what does it mean to us, and what can we really do to, further that? Typically, when those room taxes are taken, it goes back to the community to, reinvest in the initiatives to get people to come to the community, to come and dine in the community, or to come and stay in the community, and to promote some level of tourism. typically a lot of, that is, for some communities, it's a cash flow source. I don't see that for us. I don't see that we have, clearly we can't support a Hilton Garden Inn, based on population and, neighborhood comparables. So, this is probably a smaller amount, but it would be nice to know what the baseline looks like and then how it relates to like Airbnb and some of those other ones. I know that those have been brought up as concerns within the community that, the community could be benefiting from some tax dollars in that space as well.
Oh, okay. Oh, we'll go Alderman Bratt.
Oh, please.
Oh, thanks.
He hasn't spoke yet.
Yeah, so I really appreciate this conversation. I'm reminded me of this old statement that opinions without facts are opinions. And, I voted for the hotel study in part because I think our community needs a diverse mix of revenue sources. It cannot just be residential property tax. So, I was a little surprised, but, data is data, and we have to live with that. In the same way, I would argue that we, like my colleague said, that we need to study, know more about the room tax. I think it could be a valuable way to diversify our revenue sources. And so we have facts to match an opinion. So, thank you.
Okay, Alderman Parrish.
Pass.
Pass, okay. Alderman Meyer.
I'd be willing to take a look at it. I don't think that, and the one thing for sure, I want to make sure that it wouldn't hurt our hotels or what we currently have here, any of the owners that we have here and the businesses. But, when you take a look for a hotel someplace and it doesn't list on there that, that it's $123 a month and that includes hotel tax. It's not listed that way for it. It just says plus taxes and stuff like that. So, and I don't think that our hotels or the places that we have here advertise saying, come stay with us because we don't have any room tax. I don't think that's a really driving factor in either way on that. So I'd be willing to take a look and do a comparison of what other people are charging for that. And along with Alderman Strelchek, want to see what type of income that does produce and the benefits for the city in doing that and promoting other things.
Yep, so good lead in for an opportunity for a straw poll. Who's interested in learning a little bit more about what a room tax might look like? Okay, so you can always choose to have it or not have it, and if you have it, at what level you set it. So it's not super impactful, but so there's some general consensus to move forward there.
So Mayor and Council, I would ask then, the financial component, the financial analysis component of the scope of services that we entered into RevPAR did include a discussion about the hotel room tax. And as I mentioned, there is a draft proposal, to give us a little bit more detail from RevPAR. Do you want to grant authority to move forward with that component of the scope of services, or would you like us back with a little bit more detail and a dollar amount so that we're making sure we're staying within, financial parameters for those expenditures? Again, these costs can be paid for by the TIF. Two of our hotels, two of the three hotels are located in two of the TIF districts. So I think you have the discretion to go ahead and authorize that now, but if you'd like additional information, we can bring that back.
Okay, another straw poll. Okay, going forward under the current scope of services, or the counter to that is who would like to learn more and maybe sharpen the pencil on that? Remind us what the dollar amount is in the current.
Yeah, we don't have a specified dollar amount, so we'd have to, sharpen our pencil.
Oh, so maybe there is no decision to make. So we'll come back with, I think the answer was yes, but we have to come back with a number and a rough scope to make sure it's in line with what people want. Is that correct? Unless there's a existing line item?
Well, there was an existing line item related to financial analysis in the scope of services for the proposal, which was $10,000. So, that included other economic assessments. So we would have to work with RevPAR to better understand that
Find out what a
component
breakdown
of that,
Okay,
yes.
why don't we bring that back then?
Okay.
Yeah. Just so we're clear what we're spending the money on. All right. Anything else on the hotel topic? Okay, I think we're good. Right, is
Thank you,
staff good?
RevPAR.
Yep, thank you, RevPAR. It's amazing work, and maybe it wasn't the answers we wanted, but it's the answers the data's the data. So,
Yeah,
thank you
and
very much.
it'll assist us
you
with
for
the
the
zoning
opportunity to present.
regulations as well.
All right, we're going to move on briefly to a short presentation on the overview of the city's new agenda management provider, Civic Plus. So if you're looking for agendas online, you'll notice that the look and feel of the website's changed a little bit. So we're gonna go through that for the benefit of council and the general public. Take it away, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mayor. Council. As the mayor indicated, the city recently moved to a new vendor for housing our agendas, packets, videos, and minutes. So I'd like to begin by showing the public portion of the new website. As you can see here, I'm on the city website. And if you click on agendas and minutes, it brings you right into the Civic Plus listing of current and future meetings. So you can see here, it starts with the current meetings for today. You can scroll back and go back to past meetings. You can click here to download any of the agendas and minutes. And we're going to click on public safety. And you can choose to pull up the packet or just the agenda. And there we go. It pulls up the packet. It's the same packet that the council's been used to seeing over the years. Very similar look. If you notice over here at the calendar, you can go back through the years. Staff has imported 5 years worth of agendas, minutes, videos. So you can go back 5 years to find past packets. If you go ahead and click on the year, any of these dates that are in bold is when a meeting took place. So you can click on that. It brings you right into those dates, and you can see that the meetings that took place during that month. Okay. You can also search by an individual committee. Okay, and then it'll bring up both the future and the past meetings. You can search by content. You can type in any combination of words, and you can bring up the packets that fulfill that content that you're searching for. All right. And now I'd like to show you the board portion of it. So the portion that I just showed you is for the public. There's also a portion of Civic Plus that committee members, council members can access packets and take notes right within the system, save those notes so that when you prepare for meetings that you have that available for you. So when you come into the Civic Plus website, you click on your initials and you go to board portal. And as you can see, it pulls up all the most current meetings with Common Council here being one of the ones in the front, and the more meetings in the past are further down. So if you click on one of the meetings, you can go into each individual item and take notes. And there's several different ways you can do this. You can go into it and you have here a staff memo that you can open up. You can take notes down here for any item that you want to take notes on. Okay. And then when you go ahead and save it, those notes will be in your packet for the next time when you come in and take a look at it. You can star packets and individual items, so it reminds you that you have information on that individual item. So that's how you can take a look at it on a individual basis. If you also wanted to just take a look at the agenda packet in full and take notes that way, you click on packet here, annotate file. Okay. And then if you click on annotate, you can do all kinds of things here. You can, they have arrows, you can insert a text box and then take notes here. And when you do click on any of these, you'll notice that another box opens on the right-hand side where you can give a little bit more details. Okay. You can also do the same thing if you wanted to just take a look at the agenda and make notes on the agenda. So if you do it this way, a lot of times it's easier because you have the entire packet available to you and you can take notes on the entire packet instead of individual items. Okay. And the last thing that I wanted to show you too, there's all kinds of different things that you can use to make notes. You can make individual boxes if you need to, whatever it is you're going to be doing in your packet. When you save it, you come back in and everything's in your packet. Do you have any questions for me?
Personal notes, are they viewable to everyone else, or is that just comes up to your own personal?
So you'll log into your own Civic Plus account with your user and password. So everything that you put into the packets is only viewable for you.
But it is probably also a public record then.
I believe notes are not considered public.
By definition, private personal notes for your own purposes are not a record by definition.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's good to clarify so everyone knows what the ground rules are. Once you annotate the file in your workspace in Civic Plus for the people up here, can you then download that edited document?
Yes. Yeah, there's a download option as well. And you can,
There was, but we just didn't go over it.
right. But the notes will remain there unless you delete the item. So it'll always be available for you.
Okay. Yeah, working from here during a meeting is a little cumbersome, but being able to download the file you annotated would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions? We're rapidly approaching the end of our meeting. I know we didn't save as much time for this as we had anticipated, but any questions for Carolyn while we've got her? We've got a couple minutes left. Okay. Thanks for the quick overview. That's all
Thank you, Mayor.
recorded, so you can go back and look up the video to see how to do it again. We'll move on. We just have one item left, the informational item regarding the Committee of the Whole planning calendar moving into 2026, so you can see see the preview of coming attractions for early next year in there. And I don't know if anyone's got any comments on that. We've only got a minute left as well. Hearing and seeing no comments, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned and we'll restart as the Common Council in 1 minute. All right. We're now ready to call to order the Common Council meeting of Tuesday, December 9th. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchak,
I'm here.
Alderman Talaco,
Here.
Alderman Meyer. Here. Alderman Hancher.
Here.
Alderman Bach,
Here.
Alderman Parrish,
Here.
Alderman Bratt,
Here.
Alderman Gebhardt.
Here.
And Mayor Nurbin.
Here. First up, we have a couple of public hearings, the first of which Ordinance 2025-1686, an ordinance approving a rezoning of the properties located at 11030, 11020, 10950 North Bunch Rock Avenue, 11027 North Weston Drive, and the property immediately to the south of Town Center, from Town Center to with a planned unit development in connection with the planned residential development consisting of 58 row house-style dwelling units, a mixed-use commercial building, and open space, associated open space. This was recommended by the Planning Commission October 27th in first reading last month at Council on November 11th. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of entering public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in public hearing. Is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
All those in favor of closing public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're back in regular session and we'll take up consideration of the ordinance. Are there any questions for staff or a motion?
I'd move
Alderwoman
approval.
Flacco, is it, well, sorry.
I'll just make a quick comment. I am not in favor of this development. I am not in favor of the row houses. I don't think it fits with the character of Mequon. I don't think that's what our residents necessarily want. This was approved prior to me becoming an alderman. So I will be in support of it tonight, knowing that this will be the last condensed development that I hope that Mequon sees for a very, very long time.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments or a motion? Alderman Meyer.
I do have just one quick comment. I will be voting for it, but I'm also concerned about the compaction of all the people we have in a complete area over there. I know that we need to have residents support the area inside there, but I think we're overdoing it a little bit in here. And I think that consideration in the next, if something comes forward, will be a little bit different on my part.
Any other comments? We'll point out this uses most of the available land left in town center, so there's not going to be much room to do much else.
Yeah, all but one or two lots, correct?
There's a couple of lots
Smaller.
left. That's about it. Yeah. Is there a motion or another comment, Alderman
Yeah.
Strelczyk?
I'm in agreement with the other aldermen. I sat on planning commission for this one, and I think based on the parameters within town center, this really fits. There was a lot of thoughtful design on pedestrian traffic and how the pedestrian flow would work through the property. Again, you know, my goal was to have less apartments in here and more retail. I don't think we have the amount of retail that we want within the community. You know, I find it hard to drive through Cedarburg just due to the traffic and all the people stopping and starting and going in and out of the retail stores there and the activity and the hustle and the bustle. And my vision for town center was a little closer to, you know, a mixed use residential, but again, a little bit more in that shopping and retail. So we do have a mixed use building in this one. We have a couple mixed use buildings that aren't, you know, fully tenanted out. I would encourage the developers to, you know, see what they can do to get tenants into those mixed use buildings to try to, you know, make this the residential walkable community in which people have things to walk to. That we envisioned when we originally came up with this plan, and not just, you know, a series of a little more dense housing and things like that through downtown. So, you know, I made a motion to approve, you know, kind of based on, you know, my experience through planning commission and what I've seen through the ordinance. You know, it fits what that is and what that was set up to do. But, you know, again, highlighting the fact that I think we missed the mark a little bit on the retail side of things.
Can certainly appreciate that point of view. I think a lot of the what I hear from the development side is we need more bodies walking through the stores to support it. So this will, it's a balance. You need a little bit of both. So Any other comments? That was a motion. Is there a second? Second. Okay, we have a second. Any other comments or questions for staff? Hearing none, let's call the roll.
Alderman Strelchak,
Aye.
Alderman Talaco, Alderman Meyer, Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Bach,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Bratt,
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt.
Aye.
The ayes have it. We'll move on to ordinance 2025-1687, an ordinance amending Chapter 58 of the Mequon Municipal Code, allowing two-family residential cluster developments as conditional uses within the city's neighborhood commercial zoning district. This was recommended by Planning Commission on October 27th, further recommended by Public Welfare on November 11th, and was also a first reading at Common Council on November 11th. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
All those in favor of entering public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in public hearing. Is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to close public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor of closing public hearing, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
We are now back in regular session and will consider this ordinance before us.
Mayor? I need to recluse myself from ordinance 2025-1687.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions or motions from anyone other than Alderman Meyer? Okay, no questions. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Questions for staff? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Talaco. Aye. Alderman Hancher,
Aye.
Alderman Bach,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
Aye.
Alderman Bratt,
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt,
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak.
Aye.
Ayes have it. We'll move on to personal appearances and public comment. Citizens wishing to address the Common Council on any matter not on the agenda may do so at this time. If you desire to be heard on an agenda item, you may be heard when that item is considered on the agenda. Please speak into the microphone at the podium. The time limit is 5 minutes. Is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak on any item not on the agenda? Yes, sir. Please come up to the podium, or ma'am. Please state your name and address for the record so the clerk can get it written down.
My name is Rosemary
Oh,
O'Byrne.
Can you push the button on the microphone to make sure it turned there? There you go. Green's live.
My name is Rosemary O'Byrne, and I live at 1434 West Westport Circle since 2005. And the reason I'm here is I would like to petition the Common Council to allow the erection of a creche at Christmas season.
Could you repeat that, please?
I would like to petition the Common Council to allow a creche, a Christmas creche, to be erected for the community during the Christmas season.
Okay, we will take your comments under advisement, but we're not allowed to have a dialogue because it's not on the agenda, but maybe we could have someone collect your comments in more detail. Is there anything else you'd wish to discuss or talk to us about?
We were just under the understanding that if there was a moment that we could petition the Common Council to allow the erection of a creche on city property.
Well, this item's not on the agenda. We can't have a dialogue or consider it. We can only listen to
We
public.
understand that there was a moment, there was a time that was allowed.
It's just public comment. It's not really a petition.
I mean,
All right, thank you. Is there anyone, thank you, Jack. Is there anyone else here this evening who wishes to speak on any item not on the agenda? If not, we'll close public comment and move on to public officials' reports. I'd first like to just start by thanking those who came out for Winter Wonderland on Sunday. I do apologize that it conflicted with the Packer game, but we didn't intend to do that, but the NFL changed the schedule. So thanks again to the committee for putting on a wonderful event, and sincerely appreciate all those who came out to brave the cold. I do have one mayoral proclamation to give, and I'm going to actually come around front and have the recipient come up with me, and we'll read it together in front here. If Tina would please come up. Hopefully the camera can get us here. This is a proclamation from the City of Mequon recognizing Tina Schwantes for a dedicated service as the Executive Director of the Mequon-Thiensville Chamber of Commerce. Tina Schwantes has faithfully served the citizens and businesses of Mequon as the Executive Director of the Mequon-Thiensville Chamber of Commerce over the last 16 years. During her tenure with the Chamber, Tina has overseen incredible growth to more than 400 members today. Under her direction, the Mequon-Thiensville Chamber of Commerce now ranks as one of the larger and more active chambers in the region. Tina's passion for promoting the area's small business through the chamber was only one part of her commitment to the community. No matter how long the day, evening, or weekend, Tina put in the hours to make each event a success. Her presence made the chamber a connector, not just within the Mequon and Thiensville, but throughout Ozaukee County, helping businesses and community members learn and grow. Her smiling face was present at hundreds of ribbon-cutting events for new businesses, networking lunches, chamber events, and fundraisers. Tina has been a vital force in welcoming new businesses to the area and has created a foundation for the chamber to continue providing opportunities for small business owners to build meaningful relationships. Her leadership has laid the groundwork for the chamber members to create more connections and strengthen their presence and growth throughout the community. Accordingly, I, Mayor Andy Nurbin, on behalf of all the citizens of Mequon, proclaim tomorrow, Wednesday, December 10th, as Tina Schwantes Day in the city of Mequon in recognition for her years of loyal and devoted service. As Tina prepares to enjoy life's next chapter, we wish her all the best for her prosperous, exciting, and healthy future. Congratulations. Say a few words, take the...
I just wanted to say that I'm so honored, and it has been such a privilege to represent the business community in this amazing city and in the Mequon-Thiensville community. I'm just so grateful and honored, and it's been a wonderful opportunity. So I'm very fortunate, and I appreciate this so much. Very not expected at all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Administrator, do you have any reports?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and congratulations again, Tina. I've had the privilege of probably attending more than 100 ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings with you over the year, and it's always been very impressive the way you welcome new businesses and merchants into the community and make them feel welcome and a part of our wonderful city. So thank you and all the best. Just a couple of quick items here, Mayor and members of the council. Nomination papers were made available for the upcoming spring election back on December 1st. There are 3 aldermanic seats open next spring in District 2, District 3, and District 5. Nomination paperwork for anyone interested in putting in for any of these seats on the Common Council can be obtained on the city website or from the city clerk's office here at City Hall. Collecting signatures is ongoing, and all paperwork must be submitted to the city clerk by no later than Tuesday, January 6th, right after the new year. A primary, if needed, will be held on February 17th, and the spring election next year will be on April 7th, 2026. Also, today, property taxes were mailed out to all residents and property owners in the community. And there are many ways for residents and property owners to pay their taxes by the January 31st due date. Payments can be made online through the city website, in person, here at City Hall, or at either of the two Port Washington State Bank locations in Mequon and Thiensville, by the good old-fashioned dropping it in the postal box and putting a stamp on the bill, or, as I mentioned, in person here at City Hall. And notably, City Hall will be closed on several days as the holidays are approaching. We will be closed on Wednesday, December 24th for Christmas Eve, as well as Christmas Day. City Hall will be open for 4 hours in the morning on December 31st, New Year's Eve day, and then closed on January 1st for New Year's Day as well. That is my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 7 various reports or meeting minutes and 1 resolution. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, or would anyone like an item removed?
Move approval.
Motion and a second. Well, there we go. There's no discussion. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. We have no ordinances this evening. We do have several resolutions, however. The first of which is Resolution 4243, a resolution authorizing final plat for Phase 2 of Swan Ridge Farms, a single-family residential subdivision consisting of 42 lots of a total of 83 lots located immediately south and west of 10129 North Swan Road. So recommended by the Planning Commission on December 1st. I think we have at least one person from the public registered to speak, although more may pop up throughout the evening. So the first of which is Jane Shavako of 10129 North Swan Road. Says supports and wishes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I was here at the Planning Commission last week, and I live at 10129 North Swan Road, so this subdivision is now my south and west border. And for the last 37 years, the water that flowed through and around my property went downhill and watered the crops. And since the elevation of the land to my south has been raised by about 3 feet, and there's a new about 4-foot-high wall of the retention pond, there have been some water flow issues. And I think it's made worse for the Huntington Park residents. And the thing I forgot to ask last week at Planning Commission is, I believe I was told that there was going to be a final grading to the east of that pond where there would be a layer of topsoil so that when there was rain, the vegetation in the topsoil would act to hold some of that water. And certainly watching this project, I never saw that happen. And I think that if it is supposed to happen, and it hasn't, maybe because the weather turned so nasty so quickly, will that happen in the spring so that some of that water will no longer either stagnate on the clay that's there now or flow into Huntington Park? So appreciate that consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight that wishes to speak? Yeah, please come up to the podium. Just give your name and address. And
my name is Bob Quick. I live at 9220 West Stanford Court, which is directly to the north of where our fellow resident on Swan Road was talking about. She is absolutely correct that in 2025, the actions that have been taken by the developers so far resulted in our street and our properties, and there are other property owners here with me tonight, getting flooded 5 times during the fiscal year 2025. Part of that is because what they did is they did remove the topsoil. We were told it was going to come back. We agree. We never saw them bring the topsoil back. They also removed the drain tiles that were underground. So for the 31 years that I've lived here in Mequon, when we had excess rain events, the water would accumulate in the farm field in about a 25-acre depression area and slowly be absorbed and then drain past our houses and across Stanford Court to the north side of where I live, where there's a creek. Those drain tiles were removed as part of the development process in building the new retention pond. So now what's happened is the retention pond wall that she speaks of that raised the retention pond about 3 feet to 4 feet. The water now flows directly to our property from Swan Road to our houses and floods our houses. We're also getting all the property water from the south to the north of Swan Ridge, and we're getting water now from the west to the east from Concord Drive coming towards Swan Road that flows between 4 of our houses and is flooding our street and flooding our houses. We've not seen the additional topsoil be put in there. I understand there's supposed to be a vegetation plan. We would ask that before you guys get final approval to this proposal tonight, that there be more discussion and action taken on that vegetation plan so that there can be topsoil to reduce the amount of water. We don't want to repeat in 26 what happened in 25 and have 5 events where our road is flooded and the people can't get across the road, and quite frankly, our house is being flooded. I lived here 31 years. We didn't get flooded 5 times in 31 years. So the work is clearly not finished. So that's why we're here tonight to ask that the aldermen actually not approve the plan as in its final version, but request that the continued work be done and help us with that so that our properties are not flooded either on Swan Road or on Stanford Court. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
My name is Tim Spears. I live at 9211 West Stanford Court. I presented at the Planning Commission about a third of that area that was covered where the drainage used to go into the center of the field. A third of that water now is going around the retention pond and coming down through the properties, flowing. And as he indicated, the water, I've lived there since 1997, and the water is higher this year than several times than in all the time I've been there. So I think something needs to be further done, not only there, but even downstream to get the water that does need to come through there out better.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to, I know staff's prepared to answer some of the questions, so maybe we'll just dive right into that. Is Cole handling these?
Yeah.
Thank you, Cole.
Yeah, absolutely. I can start with a little background that can answer most of the questions. So consideration tonight is final plat. That's basically just us verifying that the terms of development agreement, the conditions that we put on them at time of preliminary plat have been met. Those conditions have been met. All the DA requirements have been met. So we've been aware of downstream flooding issues in the Huntington Park area for several years. There's a portion of the road that overtops quite frequently due to several different issues. During the construction of the property, during construction of the subdivision, that work was completed in mid-November. A lot of these issues that the homeowners have brought up to us and you were occurring before final grading was completed of the subdivision. The water that would normally go into the pond in the post condition when everything is completed wasn't at the time during construction while they're actively grading, creating the pond, all that kind of stuff. So the lack of vegetation and temporary erosion control as well during the process of construction also impacted how the site was draining, but that's no longer the case after the construction is completed. We've now completed we have the certification from the stormwater pond, which basically means it's been surveyed and certified by a third-party engineer that's working properly and meeting city MMSD and DNR requirements. So the subdivision now releases stormwater at lower rates than in the pre-development, even considering the pre-development conditions of the site, including low areas and things of that nature. So two last things. The erosion control obligations, there's a lot of comments about topsoiling and things. The site's been topsoiled, but the whole site hasn't been completely vegetated. There were some areas that were, but we have that permit open. We're required to do monthly inspections of that until the site is vegetated as part of our erosion control permit and DNR requirements. So that's something that will be ongoing with staff. And then as well, the Huntington Park drainage issue, we have some downstream issues that we're working with the HOA to perform some outlot drainage way maintenance that has not been done in a while. So we are following up on that, and the city's going to continue to evaluate the downstream facilities to make sure everything is up to our standards. So in conclusion, it's met all our standards so far that we know of. We haven't seen anything that would lead us to believe otherwise. And like I said, we'll continue to keep track of the restoration ongoing in spring and the downstream maintenance obligations of the HOA. Thanks.
Any questions from council now? Alderman Hancher.
So this development is in my district, so I just want to get some things in order here. So the development the city looked at it, the DNR looked at it, the MMSD looked at it, and a third-party contractor looked at it, and they all signed off saying that am I correct that the water flow is what is supposed to be coming off from the Swan Ridge Farms?
Correct. Yep. That's all been reviewed by us, a third party, and all of those regulating bodies that you mentioned.
Okay, so all of them signed off on it.
Yep.
Okay, the next question I have is, so the HOA in Huntington Park has to look at the creek that flows on the north side of Stanford Court, correct? That still needs to be taken care of in order
Correct.
for the water issue. Next thing that we had a meeting in September talking about the pipe that flows underneath Stanford Court. Has that been looked at?
It has not been looked at yet. We looked at it at least for maintenance things like making sure it's not been clogged, things like that our highway department can do. We've looked at that and made sure that that's functioning properly, but we still need to look at the sizing and if there needs to be improvements of that nature, even though the flow from the development is less now after the fact.
Okay, but if there needs to be any repairs, the city will take care of that then.
Correct. The looking at those culverts and those pipes is the city's responsibility. Yes.
Okay. The next thing is if we approve of this, the city, the DNR, MSSD, the third party all say it's okay, but we come in spring and summer, and all of a sudden the issue is still occurring. What happens then? Because if I approve of this, right, this is my district. So what is the city going to do if this is still occurring? And after the HOA has dredged out the creek, what's going to be the responsibility of the city? How is that going to be fixed?
Sure. Like I said, we'll continue to monitor the vegetation until the erosion control permit's closed. We need to make sure that's completed before we close that out and aren't dealing with the developer anymore. But up until that point, we are going to be enforcing everything in our development agreement, everything in our ordinances to make sure that gets addressed. And then after the downstream items are addressed, we'll continue to monitor the situation. Like I said, a lot of the flooding is happening in our right-of-way overtopping the street right there. So that's something we can easily monitor and continue to look at in the future.
So I just want to make sure that the residents know that they're not going to be left in the lurch where they're going to be alone in dealing with this. If they have done everything, if the Huntington Park has done everything and is still, and the city has done everything, and if they're still having issues, the city will help out.
Yeah, as long as it's something we can enforce by our ordinance and development agreement. And I also forgot to add that the pond is recertified every 5 years by an engineer. Has to go out there, survey it, make sure there's not dysfunction with it, which could definitely impact downstream properties. So we make sure that occurs every actually 2 years after the development, and then every 5 years thereafter.
Okay, because this past Saturday, I walked down Stanford Court. I went home to home and talking to people, and the people that were home, they had concerns because if they've had issues in the even prior to Swan Ridge Farms development, where they've had flooding where they could not get out. So this is not something that has happened just because of Swan Ridge Farm. It's something that's happened in years past, and I guess I wanted to make sure that it's corrected so that people that are on that court, that they can actually leave after a heavy rain, they can leave the subdivision and not have to wait till the water subsides. So I'm at this point, I feel comfortable right now, but I'm putting my faith in this Public Works and the city, making sure that this is going to be corrected, and that the vegetation, you're going to monitor the vegetation from the new subdivision, and we'll see in the spring and summer whether it holds or not. Oh,
Alderman Strelchak.
I'm sorry. Well, you're on the Planning Commission, and I know you had this.
Alderman Strelchak.
Yeah, as you remember, I ran the flag up the pole pretty high on this in Planning Commission because, water is the biggest concern to residents and in neighborhoods. The developer did reach out to me to ask me if I had any questions and things like that, prior to this as well. So I did want to commend them for, doing that outreach. I guess Cole, what he is asking that we're not answering is, my concern at Planning Commission came in the sense that it flooded all season. The work was done later in the year. We didn't have a clear articulation to the Planning Commission, nor have we had kind of a real summary articulation on the work that was done that makes it different than when the flooding was occurring. So I'm looking to have that tonight in order for a yes vote. That's how we get the yes vote, is to have an articulation that the problem's fixed and an understanding of why. And then I think what Alderman Hancher was asking, and he wasn't being as bold with it as I possibly trend to do, is if this still floods in spring and there's still issues, what's the clawback and what can we do to go through? We've gone through compliance, we've had MMSD sign off on it, we've had people do designs for water flow and water flow analysis. But if they're wrong and it still floods, what's the clawback from the city standpoint? Good, bad, or indifferent? I want to hear that answer as to what that is and what that means, or if there's something that we can put in place for one additional inspection that has tooth that could require, significant corrective action if for some reason this does flood.
Sure. And real quick with the second part that you mentioned, if we do find something later that was somehow missed, our development agreement, our ordinances are absolutely still in play, regardless of whether the subdivision construction is done or not, that developers held to that agreement regardless of where it is. So that's something we could definitely go back on and ensure it gets fixed if something, if one of their obligations wasn't met, right? Is there a way I can show you the maybe my comment to the second question or your first question?
Yeah, sure.
Bear with
I
us.
talked to Will a little bit earlier on it as a more overarching policy, kind of discussion on how we articulate water issues and things moving forward. So we'll be working, behind the scenes to.
Sure.
The public worries about the water because they don't understand, and we talk, generalities or MMSD sign off, and me as a resident, if this was next door to my house, even being an alderman, I would still have questions, right?
Yeah.
So, I want to try to simplify those explanations kind of moving forward. And I appreciate you taking the time. I know you did your homework because I got a really nice email from you. So thank you for that.
No, that's totally understandable. And this stuff is, it's a lot. So appreciate everyone being interested in trying to get their questions answered and everything. But just really briefly, an example of, at least looking back to, I think there were some photos from the June rain event that water was kind of coming down. Stanford properties are kind of over here. North is to the right. So there was water kind of coming down. This is where the pond is in this outlot. There's water kind of coming down around here and going through the drainage easement where it goes to right now. Currently, now that the subdivision's done, all of these lots on the north side of Tundra Drive here, those have to go into the pond. That's where the houses are going to be. That's the whole point of putting ponds in, capture the runoff, right? Before that, and probably when that picture was taken, there's kind of like a berm that runs along the back of these lots that gets, redirects the water that would otherwise go this direction and reroutes it into the pond. That wasn't completed yet at that time because there was a topsoil stockpile here. And so that was kind of the background on, during the interim phase of construction, not all of the stuff is going to where it should be. It was just kind of, following the natural course of the land as if a farmer were to be plowing it or whatever. So that was kind of the difference between before and after.
Great.
Are we allowed to point out that the pond is full today?
It's okay that it's full.
Point of the year.
Yeah.
It's dry. It's full. So in the spring when it rains, they can't absorb any more water.
The pond is not there to absorb water. It's there for runoff and sediment control. So it's supposed to be full. If it fills up, then the drain pipe at the top of it drains out. But it's going to sit at the level it's at. That's how stormwater ponds work. I guess I'd like to piggyback on something that Alderman Hansher brought up. There's a number of issues that predated the development, and all the stormwater maintenance regulations for MMSD in the city are centered around the development not making it worse than it was before, but not necessarily solving issues on adjacent properties at the same time. You can't hold that developer responsible for fixing the issues that surrounded it. They have to make sure they don't make to it and add to it and make it any worse. And I think that's what we've seen the numbers in the packet, and that's what our process and MMSD's process is supposed to ensure. Now, whether it's working or not, could a professional engineer flub it up? And that's why he carries a PE license, and you can sue him if he screws it up. But I don't think we have any indication that's happened here. When was all the major earth moving complete? I know we still have maybe some topsoil and vegetation things to finish out with the erosion control permit, but the major grading was finished when?
I think the major grading was finished early fall, like early November. I know they were still removing topsoil stockpiles up until mid-November, and maybe there's even a bit still out there. So yeah, it was late in summer,
we've instantly
early fall.
transitioned to to winter now, so we don't have an opportunity to see it working in action.
Right.
So it puts us at a bit of a disadvantage to really judge what's going on. Are there any other comments from any Alderman Talaco?
I guess I have a more general comment that I'd like to, for the committee of the whole, maybe we need to just relook at some of our stormwater and drainage and runoff in general, especially with this like last flooding that happened. The town center is like highly developed, but we are also realizing that some of our like storm drains maybe aren't functioning at the full capacity as they fill in with silt over years and stuff. And maybe that's something as a city we could maybe manage a little bit better, or just take another look at it. Because I do think flooding is serious. I'm glad to see people that turned out today about concerns for their house and stuff. And I know that us as a city don't take this lightly. These are your homes. And I do think that maybe we need to just relook at a couple things, and that wouldn't hurt. And that would also educate everyone to have a better understanding of maybe the engineering that goes behind it as well. So I think it would be a good thing for everyone.
Certainly put lots of focus on drainage over the past 10, 12 years. And we've had a drainage CIP list, which we've progressively chipped away at and made progress on. That's actually a pretty good success story. Not everything gets done immediately, but we've knocked out a lot of big projects over time, working within our budget. So yeah, maybe if you weren't here for all that fun, maybe a re-education on where we've been and where we're going would be appropriate at some point. Any other questions from anyone else? Or is there a motion?
So moved.
Is that move for approval?
Move for approval.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Meyer? Alderman Meyer?
Aye.
Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
Alderman Bach?
Aye.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Bratt?
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt?
Aye.
Alderman Stralchek?
No.
Alderman Talaco?
Aye.
All right, ayes have it, and that resolution passes, but staff will continue to monitor and close out all appropriate permits and be there to see it functioning in the spring. On to Resolution 4245, a resolution approving 3 letters of engagement for the completion of statutorily required audits of tax increment finance districts 3, 4, and 5 with Baker Tilly of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in the amount not to exceed of $57,500. This was recommended earlier this evening by Finance and Personnel.
Move approval.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Hancher? Aye. Alderman Bach?
Aye.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Bratt?
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt?
Aye.
Alderman Stralchek?
Aye.
Alderman Talaco?
Aye.
And Alderman Meyer?
Aye.
That resolution carries. On to Resolution 4246, a resolution approving the City of Mequon's insurance program for fiscal year 2026 with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Mutual Insurance in the estimated amount of $311,008. This was also recommended earlier this evening by Finance and Personnel.
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Just like to point out that staff was able to realize considerable savings over the previous year of roughly 17% on the insurance program. So good job finding a couple of tax levy pennies to rub together. Every little bit helps. Any other questions for staff? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Bach?
Aye.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Bratt?
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt?
Aye.
Alderman Stralchek?
Aye.
Alderman Talaco?
Aye.
Alderman Meyer?
Aye.
And Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
That item carries as well. On to Resolution 4247, a resolution adopting the City of Mequon's fee schedule for fiscal year 2026. This too was recommended earlier this evening by Finance and Personnel.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Alderman Strelchak.
I did want to highlight that we are going to, we are approving this. We can alter this at any time, and we are going to review this a little bit more in depth next month with regards to a couple of the other permits. If you have questions, just please reach out to city staff on, a fee that you think might need to be adjusting, because we'll do a little deeper dive as a committee next month. So in advance of that meeting, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That resolution carries. On to Resolution 4248, a resolution authorizing a second amendment of the state municipal financial agreement with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation for Mequon Road to include green crosswalk repainting in the Ozaki Interurban Trail. Recommendation forthcoming from Public Works this evening.
Public Works recommended it, and I move Resolution 4248.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Sadly, this will mean that there's more road construction coming to Mequon Road, but bear with us a couple more. Well, bear with the state a couple more years. Once it's all done, we won't see them again for a good long time. Any further comments or questions? I'm going to call the roll on this one. There's some big dollar numbers behind the scenes changing, so please call the roll.
Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
Alderman Bratt.
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt.
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak.
Aye.
Alderman Telako.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer. Alderman Hancher.
Aye.
And Alderman Bach.
Aye.
That resolution 2 passes. On to Resolution 4249, a resolution supporting the application for a Transportation Alternatives Program grant through the Wisconsin Department of Transportation for planning and design of side paths along portions of Donges Bay and Rangeline roads. Recommendation forthcoming from Public Works this evening.
Public Works recommended the resolution, so I'll like to move it.
Move what?
A motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. There's some downstream costs someday for this. Let's call the roll.
Alderman Bratt.
Aye.
Alderman Gebhardt.
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak.
Aye.
Alderman Telako. Alderman Meyer. Alderman Hancher.
Aye.
Alderman Bach.
Aye.
And Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
That too carries. On to Resolution 4250, a resolution authorizing the acquisition of one Dodge Durango sport utility vehicle from Ewald Automotive Group of Hartford, Wisconsin, and the procurement and installation of related equipment from Taft Outfitting of Oshkosh, Wisconsin for the total not to exceed of $47,741. Recommendation forthcoming from Public Safety this evening.
Mayor, Public Safety took up Resolution 4250 and approved. I recommend approval. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Strelchak.
Yeah, just curious as to what the decision was to move away from Ford to Dodge.
Because they'll actually take your order.
What's that?
Because they'll actually take your order, I think is the answer.
They have both.
Yeah,
Do they?
it was at one point that
Yeah.
that was the only thing we were able to get in a timely fashion.
Okay.
At this point, we're able to get both on a reasonably timely basis, but we have both, and they've both been working equally well. Is that basically correct, Chief?
And the Dodge Durango is actually about $5,000 less.
As long as it works just
Even
as
better.
well. That's what I was trying to find out. And yeah, great. Consistency of retrofits and things like that. So, yep, good. That's the only question I had. Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Gebhardt.
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak.
Aye.
Alderman Telako.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer.
Aye.
Alderman Hancher.
Aye.
Alderman Bach.
Aye.
Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
And Alderman Bratt.
Aye.
That passes as well. On to Resolution 4251, a resolution approving a change to Southern Ozaki Fire and EMS Department's capital improvement program to authorize the purchase of one ambulance from American Response Vehicles of Columbia, Missouri for $333,110. Recommendation forthcoming from Public Safety this evening.
Mayor, Public Safety approved Resolution 4251, and I recommend approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion or comments? If we order this today, we'll get it in about 2 years. So don't expect it to show up anytime soon, but we don't pay anything till it shows up, so. Now we can earn interest on the 333,000 for a couple more years, which isn't a bad thing. Any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchuk?
Aye.
Alderman Talaco? Alderman Meyer?
Aye.
Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
Alderman Bach?
Aye.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Bratt?
Aye.
And Alderman Gephardt.
Aye.
That item carries as well. Congratulations, Chief. We have no specified unfinished business from prior meetings. We have some specified new business. We have the appointment of election inspectors and special voting deputies for the period of January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2027. Those are in your packet. There's a lengthy list. And the Mid-Moraine Municipal Court Administrative Committee representative appointment of Jessica Wolf. Is there a motion to approve those appointments? Motion and a second. Any discussion or comments? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Those appointments are approved. We have just one item left on the agenda, potential closed session for personnel evaluation of the city administrator. The Common Council may convene in the closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85 Prin 1 Prin C, Wisconsin's, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performing evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and then may reconvene into open session to take such action as deemed appropriate. Is there a motion to go into closed session? All right, motion and a second to go into closed session. Please call the roll.
Alderman Talaco? Aye. Alderman Meyer?
Aye.
Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
Alderman Bach?
Aye.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Bratt?
Aye.
Alderman Gephardt?
Aye.
Alderman Strelchuk?
Aye.
Mayor Nurbin?
Aye. We will now convene into closed session. I do not anticipate we will return. So good evening, everyone.
Bill, I love the pants. You outdid me with the tie, so I'm feeling a little bit, yeah. Oh, no, you can see. Yeah. It's just like. Yeah. Yeah. And that's something you can definitely bring up with. We're aware of it, but what the system is, we're locked into, so we can't change it. That's really high as the. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's not this. So we do.
When it's live, it shows up whatever we got on the screen. It doesn't show up. It shows the presentation. And so what makes it shows all the stuff. So it's like it's locking on a map.
Yeah, I can't change
every map.
We're so Dale, we're looking at alternatives. So it's a known issue that
You enjoy the family? Are they coming home?
Yes and no. Kids are coming home, but then there's
And so we were like, you know what, then you come back. And you know when the kids get and he said, I'm not touching the And so we had to go, we had permission to put the fence so it is. And then we had to fix that.
It won't be relaxing, but.
Didn't you do a cruise last year?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. That was really
Screwed twice.
Whatever. I don't know what to do because I'm getting different
Yeah,
advice from
not so relaxing. Yeah. Yeah, especially at
We
Christmas.
just sat there and circled the ocean for like 4 hours. It's very surreal.
Yeah. Well, enjoy.
And if they were